let's talk for a moment about the maybe the part that we don't talk about enough when you see authoritarian style leaders come to power in whether it's illiberal democracies or outright authoritarian regimes, which is an amount of apathy that can come from the public that would have otherwise potentially stopped those leaders from getting into power in the first place. There is certainly an analysis that can be done of elections that we have seen strongman leaders come to power in democratic institutions. That the reason that they really won those elections was because of how many voters simply stayed home and stayed out of the process and tuned out. And you can argue that some of the backsliding we've seen in freedom of the press and other freedoms has been from a lack of, frankly, protest and a lack of people standing up and using their voices. So this is one of those phenomenon that could be a passing one, but in order for a liberal democracy to really stay strong, it requires the people who have those freedoms to be actively engaged in their government and their society. Do you agree that we have seen a disengagement, and do you feel it's a generational issue? Or is it a sort of malaise that, regardless of your age or background, we're all just sort of sleepwalking into these authoritarian regimes?
Excellent question. Again, I would say the short answer is all of the above. But before we talk about sort of voting patterns and stuff, I have to share that I do have windows into university campuses. And the attacks on the universities are hurting people. The disappearance of international students or international students being having their visas taken away, these have an impact far beyond the students who are losing their visas. It has an idea of saying, frankly, whether you are of a right wing persuasion or left wing persuasion, that some rights are being taken away from you. But one really powerful phenomenon that we've seen in the last year that is discouraging, and I think it's by plan, discouraging protests, including among our most idealistic citizens, university students, and that is the phenomenon of doxing combined with facial recognition software. You know that doxing is the phenomenon in which during protests, and this is mostly on the Gaza protests and stuff, but it hasn't just been Gaza protests. There are people in the crowd taking pictures. And now, of course, universities are requiring that you can't wear COVID type masks. And you have to show your whole face, et cetera, et cetera. There are people in the crowd taking pictures. Those pictures are being sent digitally to somebody who has facial recognition software. They're finding your name and they're publishing your name. I think in Harvard, remember, there were trucks driving around with big video screens showing students' faces and names, and later they compiled packages to send to potential employers that these students might be applying to do. This doxing phenomenon, combined especially with the facial recognition software, is having a massive impact on people's willingness to stand up, especially at a time when the economy is looking a little bit shaky, not just because of tariffs and stuff, but because the fundamentals of the economy are in a moment of transition. If students don't feel like they can go to class, that they can participate in protests, that they can write op-eds for the student newspaper, like the woman at Tufts University had done, and stuff, that has a huge dampening, chilling effect on the quality of debate, not just on university campuses, but outside. As for voting trends, I think I'm not a specialist. You know that I'm not a specialist in these things, so I say it with humility. But the absence of blocks of voters in last year's elections here in the United States did show that something's wrong. Because let's use Democratic Party terms, okay? Democratic Party terms is, let's just say that Donald Trump is a threat to African Americans' interests. But where were the African American men? Why didn't they turn out? Was it just because African American men have a little problem voting for African American women? Or was it just utter disenchantment, a pox on both their houses? I don't know the answer, but I think that the low turnout among certain groups and the low turnout among, for example, Latinos, or even more, the shift of Latinos from one party to the other are huge. Didn't they know that at some point these deportations were going to hurt them? Didn't they know that it was going to change American culture gradually from one of acceptance and embrace and really true love for them and the contribution, the amazing contribution that immigrants make to the U.S. economy and to our culture, frankly? Didn't they know that eventually that this cultural shift was going to hurt them and have them be looked at a little bit as a lower status? I don't know. But the thing here is that problems are complex. And when problems are complex and there's a lot of name calling going on and a lot of blaming going on and a lot of manipulative information, and I'm not just talking about from the leader of one party or the other, when the waters are so muddied, people don't know what to do and they stay home.